I am Dr. Jessie Piper. I'm an instructor with the Center on Aging here at K-State. Tonight, I have the pleasure of talking with you all about the benefits of intergenerational relationships. But before I get started, I wanted to make sure you're all ready to engage and interact tonight. I'm a 100% extrovert, and I would so much rather be doing this in person right now, but we have to make things work with what we have. So go ahead and give me a thumbs up on Zoom if you are ready to participate and interact. Perfect, good, good, good. I'm glad you're all here. So in the title, you'll notice that the word they is italicized. I did this to add emphasis, right? Makes sense. In the chat, I want you to please throw an idea about why, that word is italicized. And I'm gonna open my chat so I can see what everyone's saying. Why do you think the word they is italicized? You're gonna have to stay on your toes tonight. I'm gonna have you typing away or talking away. Of all the words, why they? Okay, they are a different kind of person than us. They are other. All right, keep typing in your ideas. Meaning many, not just their own. They are different. Okay, I'm seeing some ideas. Here's the real reason I emphasized they. It's because it could be the older person in the intergenerational relationship or the younger person. I'm not just saying that the older person in this intergenerational relationship knows cool stuff. Both of the theys in that relationship know cool stuff. So while this is the general idea of tonight's talk, this reciprocal relationship that they both know cool stuff, I'm excited to dig in a little bit deeper. Before we do that though, I want you to know a little bit more about me and who I work with. So, as I said, I am an instructor for the Center on Aging. I've only been with them since April. Yep, right when COVID hit our area. Fun fact, I was finishing my PhD and having a baby all around the same time. So 2020 was a pretty bittersweet year in the Piper household for sure. But despite my short time with them, I've had interactions with them throughout my time at K-State. I like to say I'm a K-State lifer because I've gotten all 3 of my degrees from K-State. My doctorate specifically is in applied family science. So I am a family scientist and I teach in the area of gerontology. The person on the screen you're seeing is Dr. Gail Dahl. She's our center director. She served as a committee member for my master's thesis, and Dr. Maggie Syme, who I don't have pictured, is a professor in the Center on Aging, and she served as a committee member during my PhD. So I say all of this to say I've been connected with the Center on Aging during my time at K-State. And now I'm incredibly fortunate to call them colleagues. So that's pretty cool. I'll talk more about the center at the end, and I'll definitely answer any questions about the programs we offer. But I wanted to say, generally speaking, in the Center on Aging, we focus on aging. That's shocking, right? Well, aging is a pretty broad term, though, and usually as an aging research, you have a niche. My niche is grandparenting. I study intergenerational relationships. Within those relationships, I study grandparent-grandchild relationships more specifically. I look at things like communication, association, and affection within those relationships. I also study resources as it pertains to grandparenting. So, how are grandparents a resource for the family, but also what resources do they need to be better grandparents? Even more specifically, I study grandparents who are raising their grandchildren, which I refer to often as grandfamilies. Give me a thumbs up if you've heard of that term before or know of someone who is part of a grandfamily. Okay, we have a few. Well, now you can officially say you know someone who was part of a grandfamily because I was raised by my grandma. I won't go into too much detail regarding my research with grandfamilies tonight, but I did want you to know that this is a huge motivator of mine for studying grandparenting. My relationship with my grandma, even though she passed away 12 years ago now, is forever something that motivates me and impacts me. How crazy is it that a relationship that essentially existed 12 years ago can still have an impact on my well-being now? So, why intergenerational relationships? I think I just alluded to it a little bit, but there's more. This was kind of stolen, I have to admit, from someone else, but I had to share it. Ecologists have found that young trees grow better when they are planted in an area with older trees. Basically, the roots of the young tree are able to follow the pathways created by former trees and implant themselves more deeply. Over time, the roots of the trees graft to one another, which creates an independent foundation hidden under the ground. The younger and older trees create this powerful dynamic where they share resources so that the whole forest becomes healthier. That's the power of an intergenerational relationship. It can transform your well-being, the other person's well-being, and even the community's well-being. A really cool thing about family science or gerontology is these things are super relatable. We may not have the same exact experience of being in a family or aging as someone else, but we have a family and we're all aging. So I find topics within these fields of study are best learned when we have a relationship to draw upon, to compare, contrast to. So let's take a moment, put a couple sentences in the chat about a grandparent, grandchild, or a grandfriend, you don't have to be related to them, that has impacted your well-being. It doesn't have to be someone you're related to. We still reap tremendous benefits from intergenerational relationships where there's no blood relation. But let me know who they are, why you love them, and what they've done to impact your well-being. And if anyone feels like speaking up, you're welcome to say it out loud as well.
Jessie, this is Carol. I'd be glad to share one with the group. There was a Sunday school teacher of mine, Miss Laverne Sims, who had an impact, and she was probably 40 years or more older. She was probably in her 40s or early 50s when she was my kindergarten Sunday school teacher. And she was always there to encourage me. We lived in a rural area, so there wasn't a lot of activities, but she invited the different age groups from kindergarten through high school to come to their house and play baseball in the summer, or make popcorn balls and things like that in the fall months, just to make sure we were connected as a community. But then she kept encouraging me and saw my potential to be my love for teaching, and invited me to, as I got older, to join her as a Sunday school teacher. So she's been a big influence. Unfortunately, she has passed away, but I still remember all the wonderful memories and the good lessons learned, and how to be a good person from Miss Laverne.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dean Shanklin. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. You also have intergenerational relationships with your grandkiddos. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you think they impact your well-being.
They keep me young and healthy. They keep me active, learning new things. With the older two grandsons, almost teenagers, or I guess they are teenagers now. They help me understand technology when I get confused or frustrated with something I'm trying to learn on my phone or iPad. So, they like helping me learn things, and then they're more open to ideas of things that they might not consider if I had not engaged them. And then Cody and Brooklyn are just fun to be around and do things with. So.
All right, that's what I anticipated you might say, but it looks like most people are saying their grandparents. I have a few people that have said people in their communities or where they work. So that is so great. I love to see the fact that you guys do have intergenerational relationships. So now I want you to, you've told me how they affect your well-being. I want you to put your feet in the other person's shoes. In the chat or out loud, tell me what you think that person gets from your relationship. How does the relationship benefit them, if at all? Anyone want to speak up and tell me about theirs?
Kind of goes with like my the other question. I was gonna talk about it. But my grandma, when my dad passed away, she kind of took like his role, and I think it really helped her because my parents are divorced. So if I didn't have like her around, or like if she didn't come see me, I wouldn't have the opportunity to like be around her ever. So I guess it kind of kept her connected to me in a way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, feel free to keep typing, but I hope that we're recognizing that this relationship is reciprocal. Intergenerational relationships have reciprocal benefits. This means that both the young person and the older person reap benefits and can experience positive effects on their well-being when they have a meaningful intergenerational relationship. Now, technically, the term intergenerational covers any relationship in which the two people are not from the same generation. So it can include parents and children or friendships in which the two people are not peers. But for the purposes of today and what I see most of you kind of going to, I will be focusing on relationships that are a little farther removed, like between a grandparent or grandchild or a young adult and an older adult. Why am I focusing on this? Well, for one, it's my research area. I can tell you a little bit about parent-child relationships, but I would often have to refer to my colleagues. But secondly, there is solid evidence that considers the parent-child relationship and its importance to well-being. We know that. Grandparent-grandchild relationships are only recently studied, and the importance of these relationships with a larger age gap involved are only recently coming to light. So I'm wondering, can anyone tell me what caused this area of research to kind of surface or become more important? You can use the chat, or I'd love to hear voices.
Has the mobility of the society influenced that? Because I know when I was growing up, both my grandparents and then Larry's in particular, they were within a mile and a half, and they were caretakers, after school, before school, and that sort of thing. And my sister's children are way away from where she is, and so they don't get to spend as much time and things together as we do with ours. So I think it may be lifestyle and mobility within the family structure.
Yes, that is a huge part for sure. There's one other thing that I'm thinking though. Anybody have any ideas why grandparent-grandchild relationships would be kind of becoming important? I'll give you a hint. What's happening to our demographics?
Sandwich generations. Yeah.
That's part of it. People are living longer. Thank you, Anika. So I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but like 86.23% of all papers discussing grandparenting or aging or intergenerational relationships start with something along the lines of, society's demographics are changing so that there are more older adults than ever before because everyone is living so long. Obviously, the number I put is a joke, but the sentiment is not. The world's demographics are changing. There are more older adults alive today than ever before because we're living longer. And this is a huge reason for things like grandparenting or grandparent-child relationships to become a focus. Simply put, more people are living long enough to see their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren born and grow up. More people today have grandparents or great-grandparents alive to even have relationships with. And some people have this luxury well into their adulthood. Children born today are likely to personally know 7 generations in their family and or their community. So their own generation, the 3 before them, and then the 3 after them. I do want to note, though, while this is the case for many, I don't want to make anyone feel bad if that's not the case for them. When we talk about this demographic shift, we're kind of speaking about it more generally. I'm not one of the lucky ones to have any grandparents still alive, much less a great-grandparent, but I have high hopes that I will be around for my grandkids and my great-grandkids. So if that's you, there's a few things I want you to consider as we're talking about these intergenerational relationships and well-being. One, you can think about what these relationships will mean for you when you're older, like I do. That's why I think it's important for us to put our feet in the other's shoes. Or you can consider that what relationships you have that are not family that could be considered intergenerational. A few of you mentioned them. If you don't have any, and even if you have grandparents alive, I hope that this discussion tonight kind of encourages you to go make more or make some. Okay, so you know from the title of this presentation that my biggest reasoning for encouraging intergenerational relationships between young and older adults is because the benefits are mutual, right? Why, if the benefits are so obvious, don't more people have relationships with people from different generations that are outside their family? Something they're not required or obligated to do. Or why do some people choose not to have strong intergenerational relationships within their family? There may be a million reasons, but a really strong one is ageism. Unfortunately, our society is still quite ageist, and you can see stereotypes of older adults all over the media every day. So, in the chat, really quickly, can you name a few stereotypes that might exist for older adults? Slower, grumpy, bad at technology, weak, or have physical ailments for sure, poor memory, their life is going downhill. Madison, that's often related to ideas that their life is not good, they're depressed. So that is definitely some stereotypes as well. So that being said, I'd like to share a video with you. My internet is slow. Sorry, guys. Hang tight. Give me a thumbs up if you can see it and hear it.
Can't hear it.
Can't hear it.
You'll just have to go back. So you have to unshare your screen and then share it again and click the little button down at the bottom that says share with sound.
Okay. Oh, yep, you are correct. Oh no, it's not going to let me. Can you hear it now?
No.
Darn it. See, it's not just older adults that have trouble with technology. It's also 31-year-old instructors. Still not working? Okay. Well, unless Jessica has magical
The only thing I was going to say
suggestions
is
for me,
you could put it in the chat.
I'm just going to have to share these links with you later. All right, so basically you guys hit the nail on the head. There are, you know, a lot of stereotypes for older adults, and you listed a bunch of them. But obviously, stereotypes don't only exist for older adults. There's also stereotypes for young adults, typically teenagers especially. So these both age groups in these intergenerational relationships have stereotypes. So can you think of some stereotypes that might be held about young people, teenagers, or even just young people in general? Lazy, self-centered. Wild and like to party, rowdy. I hear entitled all the time. Rude, yep, always on the phone, for sure. Okay, you guys got it. So these stereotypes about each of these age groups exist. How do you think that a stereotype has gotten in the way of you having a good relationship with an older adult or a young person? Any ideas?
I think fear in that you're not sure how to approach the other individual, even though you might be interested, you really don't understand everything that's going on in, quote, their world. And so you just avoid it versus trying to ask the right questions or approach them at a time that they're more willing to listen, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a huge reason. Yes, for sure. Fear is a big reason, or feeling like you won't have anything in common with them, maybe. So how many of you know an older adult or a young person, maybe yourself, that doesn't fit these descriptors? I know a lot of older adults that don't fit those descriptors. I don't have very many teenagers in my life or even young people. I think I would still consider myself a young person. So maybe I don't really fit those descriptors. How can we refute these stereotypes and move forward towards a more age-accepting society that encourages intergenerational relationships? Any ideas? I think Dean Shanklin mentioned a good one. We can talk to them, right? Talk to the other person about our fears. So if we have issues with talking to our grandparents, maybe we can talk about it. Like, Grandma, I don't want you to be afraid of technology. Can I help you figure it out, or something like that? I also think the first step is to fight negativity with positivity. So what positive attributes do young people or older people have? Let's put those in the chat, or let's talk about them out loud.
I think some positive attributes for older adults and teenagers could just be sharing your stories and similarities between the two ages.
Yes, that's definitely a positive thing that the two can do together. I'm curious though, what positive things do older adults have that they could offer to an intergenerational relationship? Or what positive things do young people have that they could offer to a relationship?
I think that older adults have like perspective, so they can give you like a lot more perspective to issues than you would have as a younger person.
Yes, for sure. And I would argue, Adelaide, that a younger person has perspective that an older person might not have. Experiences, that's what Dean Shanklin wrote. Perfect. So truthfully, today's older adults are healthier mentally and physically than older generations before them. So that should kind of push out some of those stereotypes. As we age, our brains actually improve in many ways, including in complex problem solving and emotional skills. Skills that young people developmentally lack. It's not their fault, it's the fact that their brain hasn't gotten there yet. Furthermore, emphasizing these kind of soft skills, so these problem solving emotional skills instead of academic skills like our society often does, has been shown to improve concrete performance in things like reading, writing, and math. So if we focus on these softer skills, these problem solving, these emotional skills that older adults are already good at, and help them work with the young adults will actually get better at the things we're really wanting them to get better at, these academic skills. So it kind of goes against what we might initially assume. Instead of focusing on these book smarts, things like emotional skills will actually improve the rest of it. So this was another video that I wanted to show that I'll have to put a a link up, but clearly one of the biggest reasons intergenerational relationships are advantageous for young people is because older people have more experience and more emotional stability. So as they age, they literally gain experience in living. With this experience comes perspective and what many people will call wisdom. So I think wisdom is often seen as this thing that you only have when you're super old, but that's just not true. Wisdom is gained simply by living. As we experience life, we increase our chances of encountering a problem or situation similar to something we've already experienced. So we've already developed these solutions or strategies to deal with it. If you're a young person with a positive relationship to an older person, we don't always have to experience these things ourselves, though. We can use their wisdom as support in our own lives. As an educator, I've always believed that failure kind of helps us learn the fastest. It's some of life's best teaching moments. We often remember the times we failed more than the times we succeeded. I want you to think of a test. After receiving your grade, do you go back and check the answers you got right, or do you go back and beeline to the ones you got wrong to see what you should have put? So older generations can share their mistakes and their misfortunes with younger generations, so those younger generations don't have to make the same mistakes, hopefully. But truthfully, sharing good experiences can also be a life lesson. This video that I was going to show shows how important an experience is to gaining wisdom. So in the video, it starts with a very young kiddo. I think she's she's 7, giving advice to a 6-year-old, and then it goes all the way up to 99. So even that 7-year-old has experience and wisdom that the 6-year-old doesn't have, that they can share with younger generations. Oops. Okay, so the benefits of intergenerational go beyond just wisdom or providing support, though. Meaningful relationships are foundational to our well-being. A person cannot thrive in isolation. I think we've learned that from the COVID-19 situation. I'm sure most of you have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but if you haven't, I have a picture up here in the bottom left corner. Safety, security, belonging, these are things at the bottom, meaning they are foundational to our success in all of our endeavors. And above them is esteem. So children and young people are more likely to thrive when their passions and ideas are championed and when they cultivate a sense of purpose. You can see that Yuri Bronfenbrenner, who is a theorist, says that every child needs at least one adult who irrationally is crazy about him or her. So it just shows that people are what help kiddos develop and grow. Then older people experience fulfillment and purpose in their own lives when they have relationships with younger people. Young people provide happiness or affection for the older adults through these relationships, and they often help and support these older adults. Through these relationships, older adults experience less depression and better overall physical health, which is kind of a crazy connection, right? Older adults have a drive to give back. It's called generativity. So if you've heard of Erikson's theory, you've probably heard of this term, but basically the idea is that their focus has shifted as they've aged. They want to leave a positive legacy by addressing the needs and successes of the coming generation. So they want to give back. Through this generativity, we ensure social continuity and progress. Well-being later in life is directly related to how a person uses their wisdom and abilities in meaningful ways, like through this generativity. Giving to others involves a sense of social belonging, back to Maslow's, and value. So older adults' well-being suffers when they face isolation as well. So it's clear that our health and well-being are foundationally related to our social connections, no matter how old we are. So I want to ask you this. Think back to the relationship that you told me about in the beginning. Knowing what you know now, what I've said a little bit, in this last 20 minutes about intergenerational relationships, and tell me, what will you do, if anything, differently to maintain or even improve that relationship with that person, knowing how helpful it is to both of you? Oh, Katie, I love that so much.
I was going to say, and then in regards to this question, a lot of times this is thinking about fostering my daughter's relationship with her grandma. A lot of times I think like, oh, I don't want to like burden grandma by asking her to watch my daughter. And like, I don't want to like overtax or feel like I'm taking advantage of that relationship. But it is really something that is important for all of us intergenerationally. So just knowing like she'll tell me no if she doesn't want to watch her, and it's okay. And it's really good for everyone the more time they spend together.
Yes, especially if you've had that conversation with her that says, I'm asking you, you have the right to say no when you want to say no.
Yes.
But yes, we can go into a whole nother rabbit hole of what, I guess, role parents play in this grandparent-grandchild relationship. So for another event though. So I'm seeing people say they want to stay connected, talk on the phone, so communication, connect more often. It's hard right now, right? COVID-19 has made that a little bit more difficult. Maintain my relationships by changing the way I think and being more understanding. So getting rid of some of those stereotypes or those barriers within the relationships, activities that you enjoyed that are in common. I love that so much. I will call my grandma a lot more. Morgan, I hope you do. That's so great. So I hope after today, you're able to recognize that these intergenerational relationships are bigger than the two people within them. It's about so much more than well-being of the two people in the relationship. Connecting generations has the power to be a catalyst for changing the world. And I don't say that lightly. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but doing this can literally affect the well-being of the communities we live in as well. I know it sounds crazy, but I really think it's true. Older adults are at a point in their lives when they want to leave a legacy. They're reflecting on their lives and wanting to leave a lasting positive impact. They can do this by connecting with young people, and young people provide a way to leave a legacy because every life is connected to everything that is right now, that comes before, or what's to come after. It's cheesy, but legacy connects time across generations. It can be a burden or it can be a gift. So my grandma's legacy lives on through me every day. Every day I work hard, and I'll try not to tear up, to create a legacy of my own that allows her to live on. Her strength, her resilience, her humor, everything. In May, I gave birth to our first baby, Berkeley. I always knew before her that I wanted to leave a strong legacy. I'm a very ambitious person. That's just who I am. But now that I've had her, it means so much more to me than ever before. I come from a background of dysfunction, and I want to change what it means to be a gardener, which is my maiden name, now Piper. Berkeley's middle name is actually Jude, which is after my grandma, whose name is Judy. My hope is that so much more than my grandma's name lives on through me and through my daughter, even if the two never met. And someday I hope Berkeley's children will have an intergenerational relationship with me that continues to promote these values. But enough about me. I want one more thing from you. We learned a lot tonight. The biggest takeaway I hope you have is that intergenerational relationships are important and mutually beneficial. As a young person, it's really easy to think about what these relationships mean to you now, what your grandparent or grandfriend does for you and how much you love them. But I want you to also consider what you will be like when you put your feet in the other shoes. So remember I said we're all aging? We are. I wasn't lying. This means you too might someday be a grandparent or a grandfriend to someone much younger than you. My hope is that you look forward to that day, not in a way that you wish time away, because trust me, now that I've had a baby, I realize it goes way too fast, but in a way that you don't let ageist or stereotypical ideas get in the way or win. That you think of this time as being a joyful time because you did everything you could to successfully age, and now you have meaningful relationships with those younger than you. So while you have this vision in your mind of a happy, healthy older you, write something or talk to me about something from you to the older you. It can be advice, it can be a reminder, whatever you want, but something that will help older you be a strong part of an intergenerational relationship. What would you say to you as a grandparent? Carol, maybe think about what would you say to you as a great grandparent?
I'd say the value of family and relationships that take time to share things together, so that they know that you're always here and willing to listen, and not necessarily give advice, but just listen and be there for them.
Yes. Tori says, don't be afraid to reach out or ask questions. Be open to learning from those younger than me. I won't know everything about everything. Mm-hmm. Don't let stereotypes get in the way of forming a strong relationship. Stay connected to family and keep an open mind. Take your grandkids for ice cream every weekend because their parents will be so happy. Yes. Cook together. I love that. Sherilyn, I can totally relate. Some of my best memories are cooking with my grandma, and I am a much better cook because of it. Yep, I love those. Unfortunately, I've learned from loss. When you lose someone, you recognize all of the things you should have done. So one thing I will say is take time in your relationships to enjoy them now, because they may not be there forever. Share stories and memories. I love that. All right. So you guys have participated so well. Thank you so much.